Welcome to L&D Disrupt, the podcast dedicated to helping you overcome workplace challenges and prepare for the future of work today. I'm your host, Nelson Sivalingam, and I'll be speaking with the movers, shakers, and path breakers in L&D who are reshaping their organizations right now. Join us each week as we delve into the highs and lows of work in the industry to get to the real nitty-gritty stuff that you actually care about.
Picture this. You've spent weeks, months building and creating unforgettable learning experiences. Finally, the day arrives where you're going to launch it. You launch it, you wait some more, and nothing happens. You were so sure this would be a massive success. Maybe it would have been if anyone actually knew about it. Today, we're joined by Hannah Waddams, Marketing Director at MAAS Marketing, to learn how and why L&D should use marketing to create that necessary awareness. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm super excited by the topic that we're discussing today. And it's one that we can both geek out about, is how L&D can kind of leverage marketing. But before we go into the how, let's take a step back and kind of understand what are the kind of telltale signs for an L&D team to realize they have a marketing problem or a marketing gap?
Well, if I'm honest with you, I think most L&D teams have a marketing problem. So there's the telltale sign. But actually, I think we hear a lot in the L&D space of people saying, we've got an engagement problem. People aren't engaging with our learning. And I've seen some organizations spend a lot of money redeveloping e-learning courses, learning programs, whatever it is, redeveloping it because they're getting no engagement, but then realizing the engagement problem isn't actually an engagement problem at all. Right. People aren't finding the learning in the first instance. How are you meant to engage with something if you don't know it exists? And I think L&D are quite aware that there's an engagement problem.
Right.
What they don't realize is actually we're missing a whole step before that. And that's where marketing comes in. That's when you can utilize marketing skills and tactics to actually make people realize that there's a learning opportunity to be had, and that whether it's your LMS, whether it's your learning platform, your LXP, whatever you want to call it, realizing it's there is the first part of the problem, especially in some of these bigger organizations where people are bombarded with different messages. And I don't know about you, but I've heard of a lot of organizations that have got more than one learning platform or more than one hub for all these resources.
Yeah.
So I think that's a familiar issue for a lot of L&D professionals. And it's something marketing can help to overcome.
It's the classic. It reminds me of the kind of build, they will come. And often as founders and startups, you talk about the idea of you can fall in love with your product and spend most of your time and effort in building the product and very little in taking it to market. And that's the reason why a lot of early stage startups fail. And it's very similar when you think about it, where L&D is almost like that failing startup, where it's so much time and money building this, program or course, and then forgets to do the bit that takes it to market. So where can someone start? Because obviously historically, it's not been a core skill set of L&D to have kind of think like a marketeer. So how can an L&D team build that marketing muscle in the first place?
There's many ways that people can get started. And I think it is my first piece of advice would be taking inspiration from the world around you. So like you just said, startups fail because so many of them never focus on that marketing piece. They're like, why am I not selling? Because you're not marketing. It's quite a simple answer in that case. And when you think of it in an L&D perspective, it's the same. So if you've got an email from, like, say, Netflix is always a great example. And I know there's been a few comments lately of, we need to stop comparing our learning platforms to Netflix. But it is a good example from the marketing point of view. An email you got from Netflix and an email I got from them likely be very different, because they're targeted to what you're interested in and what you're doing. Yeah. And I think it's that personalization point that we need to start thinking about in the first instance. We need to start thinking about how we're communicating with people. If you're still sending an email out to all@yourcompanyname.com saying there's a new course in the LMS, you're doing it wrong. Like, people are not responding to that. We've known that for a long time. They're not responding to it. So we've got to do something different.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is a mindset shift. And I think once you've changed your mindset and thought, actually, I do need to do that bit beforehand, that's when it's a game changer. And that's when you can start thinking about learner personas. That's something we always start with, because the amount of times I've sat down with a client and gone, okay, let's talk about your learners. Who are they? Oh, well, they're the leaders of our organization. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're a mum, they're a dad, they're a husband, they're a wife, they're an auntie, uncle, they're a keyboard player. We were just talking about our pianos. Like, there's so much that person is. Nobody really identifies as a learner. Nobody walks into work and goes, today I'm a learner. I'm going to do a GDPR course. That's just, that person doesn't exist.
And at what
people are so much more.
And what point, Hannah, do you suggest people start thinking about this, right? Like, I've now got my course or learning resource and now I start thinking about personas, or at what point do I start doing this kind of thinking?
Well, right from the beginning, I'd say marketing for learning is a lot more like holistic. It's bigger picture than that. Any course, program, intervention that you design should be able to fit into it. But you need to be thinking on the bigger picture. We talk a lot about branding in learning, which is something that's really overlooked. Your people need something that they can relate to, that they can understand, okay, this entity, it's not the whole organization, it's the learning team, are really interested in my future, how to make my day better. They're giving me value somehow. And you need to build that up way before they're logging into the platform to take an e-learning course, for example. So if you've already got a whole ton of e-learning courses and interventions and things like that built out, great, start thinking about it now. If you start from scratch, great, start thinking about it now. I think the answer's today for everybody.
There's a couple of really great points there, Hannah, that I want to touch on. And the last one being the kind of learning brand piece. What is, for those who are not really clear on what is a learning brand and what does a good one look like?
So a learning brand, to me, it's a subset of your corporate brand. And quite often I'll go into an organization and they're like, yeah, we've got a brand. And they send me the organization's brand guidelines. So you're thinking about your imagery, your tone of voice, your color palette, your fonts, those kind of things, your typical brand guideline document. But that brand guideline document has been designed by a marketer or a branding specialist or somebody like that to appeal to your organization's target audience. Are you your organization's target audience? Probably not. Are your people who you're wanting to get engaged with your learning, are they your organization's target audience? Probably not. So you want it to feel familiar. So you want to use the branding in the sense of, you probably want the coloring to be the same. You want a nod to the master brand somewhere. So you want to keep that family feel, but it's a whole brand identity in itself. Yeah. Your tone of voice with your internal audience would likely be completely different to your tone of voice for your external audience. Yeah. Because it's a different target audience. They're different people.
Sorry, Hannah, just to make sure everyone's aware of what we're talking, like tone of voice. What is that?
Oh, sorry, I do fall into marketing spiel. Right. I've got nearly a decade in marketing, I forget. So tone of voice is how you're literally talking. We're talking now and it's informal, it's chatty. The MAAS brand, for example, I'm sure I work for MAAS Marketing. I'm sure most people have cottoned on by now. We are super informal. We are silly. We take the mick out of ourselves. That's who we are. I don't know, Barclays Bank is not going to talk like MAAS Marketing. So it's how you talk, whether it's in your writing, whether it's when you're presenting, those kind of things. It's just how you come across. And we find often with learning brands, be less corporate, ditch the corporate spiel. It doesn't resonate with anybody.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point. And the reason why I wanted you to explain that, Hannah, is because often people can restrict or think of branding as just logos and colors, but actually it's every interaction someone has with your brand. So it's whatever they read or whatever they speak to you or whatever they hear. every touch point they have of that experience is a part of the brand experience, and not just restricted to the colors and logos. And I think it's important to people to kind of think about that. And just kind of taking a step back to where you're talking about personalization, which is one of my favorite areas. And I think it can really change the game in many aspects, but definitely within learning. Let's say the email example, right? How can I go about, as an L&D professional, to personalize the email comms that are going out about the learning interventions that I'm running?
So I think when it comes to personalization, any e-learning developer, any instructional designer, any marketer, anyone that's in that kind of field are going to think, oh, okay, what I need to do, I need to put a first name tag in, and then it's personalized. Yeah. And personalization is so much more than that. It's a great first step. It's a great tool to use. If you can do it, do it. But that's not personalizing your email. What you really need to think, and it goes back to that personas that I was talking about, what motivates these people? What are their pain points? What are they struggling with? So an example that's probably really familiar that anyone can understand is like a productivity program. You've created a course on productivity and you want people to engage with that. Saying, as I've already said, there's a course on productivity in the LMS. Nobody's going to care. Okay, great. I'm busy. Yeah. I haven't got time to do that. But then if you want to think about, oh, okay, well, we think that if you implement these productivity tips that we're giving you, you could save 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
So saying in your email, do you want to save 3 hours a week? Yeah, I do. Yeah, okay. If that person's suffering and one of their biggest pain points is they're lacking on time, that email is super personalized to them. And that's why you need your personas. And I think what L&D, I'm seeing my clients and I'm having to have this conversation with them as they're learning how to do marketing for learning. Personas mean that not every message you send out is going to resonate with everybody. So oftentimes we'll get stakeholders coming in and being like, well, no, I don't agree with that. So well, that's okay, but you don't fall into that persona bucket. So you need to personalize it. And God, wouldn't it be great if we could literally sit down and write a personal email to absolutely every single one of our people? We can't do that. So we bucket them. We normally say like 4 or 5 personas and then think about the characteristics that pull them together, things that motivate them, their pain points, the things that they're aspiring to be, their goals and aspirations, who they want to be in the future versus who they are now, those kind of things. And then you target your message into that and the what's in it for me. What are they getting out of it? What are they going to get at the end of the day? GDPR is always a good one because people are like, oh, well, they'll be more compliant. So I don't care.
Yeah.
What I do actually care about, though, is not getting in trouble. So that's the what's in it for them at that point. So it's those kind of things that you need to think about to really target your communications. And of course, we talk about email a lot, but there's a lot more other than email that we could do. And I think that's also a trap that L&D fall into a lot.
What are the other channels? Like you said, Hannah, I think no one's sitting there going, yeah, I'd love to get one more email in my inbox, right? So it's already a difficult channel. So what are the other channels that people can leverage and personalize?
Well, I don't know a single organization out there that doesn't have some form of intranet, some form of like file share in place. These things, like if you're thinking of like SharePoint and Teams, there's always places you can personalize them. You can get your message out on those. You can create banner adverts. Like I could describe what a banner advert is. It's a long, narrow advert that you see on a web page. Yeah. You've all seen them. Let's utilize that internally. That's okay. We can do that. A lot of organizations use Workplace, which is Facebook for Business, the social media channels. You might have a private LinkedIn group for your employees, that kind of thing. Definitely utilize all those kind of platforms that are a bit further away from the humdrum of the emails that you're getting through your inbox. Because if it doesn't look urgent, they're not going to do anything about it. Also, take it away from tech. If you're back in your office, if you've got an office and you're back there, put a poster up around the water cooler. Yeah. Like sometimes the old things do work. Yeah. You just need to generate that brand awareness. You need to be getting people to be thinking about your learning. So if you've built that learning brand that I spoke about earlier, you want people to recognize it and go, oh, those are the people that really want to help me. And you want to stay front of mind. You want them to be thinking about you.
And I think it's a really interesting point, Hannah, about the kind of LinkedIn group, because often what I find is when I'm speaking to L&D professionals, they often consider internal channels like, posting it on Slack or Teams or the intranet. But they forget actually most of us outside of work are using these social networks, for so many hours in a day. And they almost kind of silo and don't think about these external channels, like why it's important for you to leverage your company's LinkedIn channel to post on it, because it's not just your customers that are there. The people within the organization are also there on LinkedIn. And so it's amazing how often they don't use that channel to talk about their learning brand and what they're doing and the problems they're solving. Do you find that with kind of customers you work with?
Absolutely. We actually worked with one client very recently. The project signed off in December, and they were like a global brand. So they had people all across the globe. And then I was talking to one of their marketing teams. You do need to get marketing bought in quite a lot when you're doing marketing learning. And she went, "Oh, well, I've got some spare budget left over. Why don't we target adverts on LinkedIn? We can do it by where they work." And I was like, look, LinkedIn, I was telling you.
I guess on that marketing buy-in piece, Hannah. So, it's often the concern is going back to I don't have marketing skills. I don't know where to start. And obviously, every organization has a marketing team internally that you can collaborate, learn from, and leverage. And how best to go about getting that marketing buy-in and to start working with them on a continuous basis?
I think it really is you're befriending them. So look at MAAS, for example, our company. Ashley and I were both internal marketers, completely coincidentally for learning tech vendors. And then we were like, wait, there's a gap here. There's some marketing can help learning. And that's how we've ended up being here. If you're talking to a marketer and you're saying, look, people aren't aware of what's going on here. I can't reach my people. I can't get them to engage with what I'm doing. All marketers' heads would be like pinging with different marketing like models and tactics that they can help you apply. The problem is marketing are busy.
Yeah.
Internal marketing's busy, external marketing, branding, all those departments, they're as busy as anybody else in the organization. They're as busy as L&D are. So you need to talk to them, but need to make it very clear, like, look, we're going to do this. I was wondering, what do you think about this? Or we're developing a sub-brand because we realize that your brand is targeting your external clients and we want to target the internal clients. What do you think about this? It's almost saying like, look, I understand what you're doing here. We want to borrow some of your good stuff. And I found that when you talk a marketer's language as much as you can to a marketer, it works. And I'm saying that as a marketer.
Another tactic, I guess, that's been successful in external marketing has been influencer marketing, right? And we've seen this. I think I was reading something crazy about the guy who on Alibaba's Singles Day sold billions of pounds worth of products doing a live stream. I mean, that's the power of influence there. And we have people within organizations that are also influential. So how do you think we can leverage influencer marketing within the organization for L&D?
Well, I think there's so much that you can tap into. There's so many different levels of influencer as well inside your organization. So firstly, your leaders, senior leaders, mid-level leaders, all leaders. You think about an organization or you think like, go back to your first ever job, out of university or out of school, and you've got a boss. You mimic what your boss does. You go, oh, okay, they do this and that's okay. So it's okay for me to do it. Learning's the same. If you've got a whole bunch of leaders in your organization that are not prioritizing learning, chances are your people aren't going to prioritize it either. But if you've got a leader that's flying the flag for L&D and saying like, look, you can go on this platform and it's got so much information for you. It can enhance your career. It can help you climb the corporate ladder, whatever works, then people are more likely to engage. That's a senior person giving them permission to go and learn and telling them, yes, this is the right thing to do. But chances are you've also probably got somebody in your organization that's just a really passionate learner. Whenever I've said this to a client, they've like started name dropping people. Yep, so-and-so, she always completes all of the programs. She loves it. Those people are great influencers. Give them a platform to share their experience and their knowledge and their understanding and how your learning has helped them improve. That's a great piece. And you think about influencers like in your day-to-day life, so on your Instagrams and your YouTubes, they are just people that have experienced a product or a service and they're giving their opinion on it. So why not get your learners to do that? I actually did a podcast last week about user-generated content. It actually makes marketing for learning even quicker, even cheaper, and even more effective. Because you've got a real person sitting there saying, this was my experience, it was great. People believe people more than anyone else.
Yeah.
They're recording the video or they're writing the testimonial or whatever they're doing it for you. All you've got to do is share it. And you think videos nowadays, everyone's got a smartphone.
Yeah.
Record it on your smartphone, share it, done. It's inexpensive. It's easy to do. And it's definitely something that I want to see a lot more of L&D this year. Yeah. I'm quite enthusiastic about it. We had one client that did it slightly different. It was a learning brand still, but they had external learners. So they were selling their courses externally. But we just got 5 people to record quick 2-minute videos saying like, oh, I went on the platform, I did this, I did that. The statistics from that was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
we've definitely seen it ourselves. Like we have one customer, high growth tech company, who essentially featured employees from the company in the teasers they made for actually a GDPR course that was going to go out, and it made it exciting. And just having people who are familiar faces made it feel more relevant and bring more attention to it. We had another one where they set up kind of champion sessions. And so it was like a gradual rollout of champions is what they labeled it, but they were essentially influencers. And what was really interesting was sometimes, L&D only go after the obvious influencers, like you said, the managers and the leaders, but you've also got people who are not necessarily might not have any senior titles, but they're influencers because they're at every social, they know everyone, and they're well connected in loads of networks within the company. And they're the people you really want to tap into and leverage that network, and really seen it drive some results for some of the organizations that we work with. Other than that, Hannah, what are some of the other tactics that you've seen across kind of customers you work with where you think, these tactics have, not to say it's one size fits all, but tactics that you've seen have worked time and time again for customers that you work with to drive that engagement?
Oh, I think it's hard when it comes to L&D because it depends on that organization's learning team's ability to get hold of marketing technology. But the thing I've seen most impact with, and I've persuaded a few L&D teams to go away and procure their own systems now, is like automated emails, drip campaigns kind of thing. So for those of you listening that don't know, automated emails, they could be called workflows, they could be drip campaigns, they go under many different names, even in the world of marketing. But it's essentially a series of emails that are sent based on the user's behavior. So if they click through, if they ignore the email, if they open it and don't click, you can give them different emails then after based on what they did with the first email. And those ones I've seen so much impact with because you break it down and you personalize it still. So you've got your personas, so you're sending it to one persona, but then you learn more about those people.
Right.
So with a client I worked with recently, we did 3 different workflows, all with the same end goal, but the emails were slightly different. And some of them we were like, that proves our assumption we made about that one persona, because they kept opening the emails and it wasn't till email 4 that they clicked through. And they thought, oh, actually, I should engage with this. If we'd given up on the first email, these people didn't open it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked. So I think we need to make L&D need to realize that a one-off email, a one-off advert, that kind of thing is never going to make an impact.
Yeah.
And we need to be persistent with it. And things like drip campaigns make it easy for L&D to do that consistent marketing.
Yeah.
L&D are time poor. As much as our learners are time poor, L&D are time poor. So technology that helps you do that makes a lot of impact. And that's what I've seen the best success with so far.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's not a transaction, right? You're building a relationship. And that's why the one and done email doesn't work, or that one-time push doesn't work. And do you have challenges around, when we talk about as a business, you talk about marketing, there's questions around marketing attribution, right? So for those listening, there's different types in terms of first touch, like is it where they first heard about you, or is it where they last heard about you before they became a customer? And really you're trying to attribute which marketing efforts and channels are working and what's not working. How do you suggest an L&D professional approaches their thinking around what of the marketing effort is working and what isn't working?
I think it's a slow process. I think the problem that a lot of organizations have as a whole, this isn't almost an L&D problem, it's a wider problem, is, oh, well, we've not seen any impact in that, but we've been doing it for 3 months.
Right.
We haven't got any leads yet, so we give up. That marketing, I wish it was, but then I'm pleased it doesn't, because I wouldn't have a job. But marketing is not that instant. Yeah. It's not that quick, done it, and you get leads. And I realized the other day, not everyone knows the phrase of leads. So that's people coming through as potential customers, really. And L&D are the same. Oh, well, we sent out a drip campaign of 5 emails and we only got 20% people click through to the platform. So it's clearly not working. Okay, but those other 80% of people have still seen your brand and they're still more aware of you. And it's that awareness stage we're really, really missing. So I think that's an important thing. Give yourself the time to work out if something's worked or not. Just because it didn't work with your first 5 emails or the first banner advert you put out, or I don't know, even if a link goes wrong, it's okay. We're learning from our failures. We're making progress. That is what we're meant to be doing here. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on yourself to prove something works immediately. And then things like, I don't want to blow the minds of your listeners here, but like things like add Google Analytics to your learning platforms. And then you can use things like UTM links. So a UTM link, to put it really simply, you've probably seen it and thought, what on earth's that URL? It's the normal URL with a question mark and then a load of junk after it. But in a marketer's head, that junk makes sense. And then when they log into Google Analytics, they can see exactly where you've come from and then where you go. And it's those kind of data points that are really going to help L&D. But I think a lot of people right now, where marketing for learning really is, and in its infancy, that's quite advanced. That's quite advanced thinking. If your listeners are thinking about that, then I'm super impressed. You are smashing life. Well done. You're a marketing for learning expert. I think you just need to try and not be worried about failure. I think that's what L&D are a bit concerned about with marketing. You're saying, look, we're trying this new thing. We're doing marketing. Or what if we fail? What if it doesn't quite work? And so you've learned a lesson. Yeah. We're L&D professionals after all. We know the importance of failing. So just give it a go, I think is my biggest thing.
Hannah, this is a topic we can do an entire series on, which is a good thing because you do have a podcast series on this topic. So
I have an entire series on it.
So why don't you, before we go on to the kind of quickfire round, tell us a bit about the podcast and where can people listen to it?
So the Marketing for Learning podcast is exactly what it says on the tin. Myself and Ashley, the founder of MAAS Marketing, we talk about all things marketing and apply them to a learning context. So today I've mentioned things like email drip campaigns, learner personas. One thing I've not touched on today about triggering emotions and how we use our words more impactfully in L&D to get people engaged. All of those have their own bespoke 10-minute, really nice, quick podcast on the Marketing for Learning podcast. And it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's also posted on my LinkedIn about once a week. So if you want to find me, you'll find the podcast.
All right. Do check it out. And we'll add the links in the show notes so everyone can easily find it. And we're going to go for the quick fire round. Are you ready?
I think I am.
All right. Let's start with, how do you learn?
How do I learn? I think for me, I learn in quite a variety of ways. I'm not saying this because I've got a podcast and I'm on a podcast. I love podcasts. I think podcasts are a great way to walk away from your desk, but still be thinking and still be listening to things that are relevant to what you're interested in, because learning is not just about work. But I like to go on a walk and listen to a podcast. I remember them so much more.
How do you start your day?
When I read this in your notes, and I'm going to confess to everybody that you send the notes over, I was like, I'm picturing a lovely summer's day. I like to have my breakfast on the balcony. I like to chill out. And I do like to either read a book, listen to a webinar. There's actually a marketing community that I'm part of that they do webinars every Tuesday. So every Tuesday morning, I listen to one of them, that kind of thing, just to get my creative juices going without putting too much pressure on myself. I'm not a morning person.
That makes the two of us. If you could change one thing about L&D, what would it be?
Can I cheat and have two?
Yeah, go for it.
I think from an L&D perspective, that obsession with engagement, I think let's look further. Let's look at better data than that. Let's start thinking about if people are actually changing their behaviours, if they're actually learning from our learning resources, not how often they log in and look at a course. It's just, to me, that's not learning. But then also from like a marketing for learning perspective, I really wish L&D could have more access to the marketing tools.
Yeah.
Those clients and people that I've spoken to that do have access to them have such an easier time. So I wish there was more synergies between marketing and learning so that people could, leverage the good stuff.
Again, I completely agree. And I think this is where L&D can play a critical role in eliminating those silos in the first place, right? There's no reason why the learning that marketing do has to be restricted to just a marketing team. And it should be shared with anyone who's interested in the wider organization. Because there's so many transferable things like data, marketing, all of these skills are transferable skills regardless of the role you're in. But yeah, definitely agree with that. What's the one bit of advice that you've given the most?
I've already given it in today's podcast. Don't be scared to fail. But I say it to everybody. So like my other half was applying for a job. I was like, so what? If you don't get it, you don't get it. You've still got a job right now. That's okay. Yeah. Like, don't be worried. I think we live in a society where we get so embarrassed if we do something wrong or don't know something. And that's not going to help anybody. Accept what you don't know. Learn more when you can. Fail if you have to. It's all right. Like, the world's not going to blow up.
Love it. What's the one book you've recommended the most?
Oh, that's hard. There's a book about storytelling. It's a really little book. I can't remember the name of it. I will send that one to you afterwards. But the one I would happily recommend right now is Atomic Habits. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, and I'm loving it. I'm absolutely addicted to it, if I'm honest. It's changing my mindset about a lot of things. So I highly recommend that one right now. And I will send the link over to the storytelling book because that's really good as well.
Yeah, storytelling is another underrated skill that's not just for L&D, but I think anyone doing anything, storytelling is critical and it's definitely underrated. What's your best productivity hack?
I think for me, and a lot of people might resonate with this right now because I think a lot of people are still working from home, but we're a fully remote company. If I'm finding myself in a bit of a funk and I'm like, I can't get into it today, I move quite literally. So I sometimes take my laptop. If it's a summer day, I take it outside. I move into the living room. I've got a co-working space I go to. I like to be around other things and other people. And I think that really gets me being productive. And I love a list. I think most people would say that, but I love a list.
What's the one thing you've changed your mind about recently?
I keep answering your questions in advance. It's habit. It's habits. And it's because of Atomic Habits. I was definitely one of those people that was like, oh no, like I don't do that. That's not me. And in an early part of Atomic Habits, it actually talks about somebody trying to lose weight and they persistently ask themselves the question, what would a healthy person do? And I've been trying that for the last however many weeks there have been of 2022, and it works. I've started doing things just off the bat because I think I know what I'm going to answer that question. So let me just do it. So building and changing habits, I think, is something I just always resigned myself to going, oh, well, I've got that habit and I'm never going to be able to break it. It's actually a bit easier than that, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And the last one for you, Hannah, is what are you most proud of?
Oh, that is a toughie in general or in work. I think overall, it honestly, the last couple of years being part of MAAS and seeing the impact in organisations. So last year we had 3 really big marketing for learning campaigns and looking at that data at the end of it and going, see, look, we're making an impact. And I think working in the L&D world, the impact you're making isn't just for your client. It's for the person that's learning at the end of it. And I think that's why I really love this industry. I like that there's a trickle-on effect and we're helping more people. But yeah, the thing I'm probably most proud of at work is those 3 campaigns last year. They were impressive. It proved we knew what we were doing and it made that impact for the clients. It's going to make a lasting, continuous impact for them.
Hannah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
Thanks, Hannah, for coming on the show and not only making it super clear why we should invest in marketing for learning, but also how we can actually start doing it. This is one of those episodes that I think everyone in L&D can genuinely learn something from. So please do share with your colleagues and friends if you think it's worth a listen. Details to connect with myself and Hannah can be found below, so feel free to reach out with any questions or feedback. Thanks for listening and see you next time.